I never believed a house could destroy a life. I used to believe that problems came from people, bad decisions, money, stress, misunderstandings. I never imagined that walls, floors, and ceilings could hold something that waits, watches, and slowly takes everything from you. My name is Daniel Harper, and this is the reason I will never forgive myself for moving my family into that apartment. But before we start the story, please make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you can be able to see more video like this one. Thanks. Now, let's begin. It started with good intentions. In 2018, I was drowning in debt. I had just lost my job at a small tech company after they downsized. My wife Emily was working part-time at a bookstore, but it wasn't enough to cover the mortgage on our suburban home. We had 2 children, Noah, who was 8, and Lily, who had just turned 5. The house we owned was beautiful, but it was crushing us. Every month felt like a fight to survive. Collection calls, overdue bills, arguments late at night when the kids were asleep. I could see the exhaustion in Emily's eyes. One evening, after another tense discussion about money, she quietly said, "Maybe we should sell the house, start over somewhere smaller." It hurt my pride, but she was right. We sold the house quickly, too quickly. We didn't make much profit, but it was enough to clear our debts and give us a fresh start. We decided to move into an older apartment complex on the edge of town. It was cheap, surprisingly cheap. 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, tall ceilings, and a view of an empty wooded lot behind the building. It felt like a second chance. The landlord, a thin man in his 60s, barely made eye contact when showing us the place. He kept the tour short. When I asked why the rent was so low, he said the building was old and hard to maintain. I should have asked more questions, but I didn't. We moved in during early October. The first night felt normal. The kids were excited. They treated it like an adventure. Emily even smiled more than I had seen in months. Then the knocking started. It happened around 2:13 a.m. 3 slow knocks. I remember waking up and thinking it was pipes expanding or settling, but the next night it happened again. By the 4th night I noticed something else. The knocks only happened when I was alone. Emily started complaining about cold spots in the hallway. She said it felt like walking through a freezer for a split second. Noah said he heard someone whispering his name at night. She told us there was a tall man standing in the corner. We laughed it off. We told her it was her imagination. But she began drawing him. Every drawing showed the same thing, a long, dark figure with no face. The tension in the apartment began to grow. Emily became irritable. Small things turned into screaming matches. I was short-tempered too. It felt like the air itself was heavy, like we were all breathing in something toxic. One night I woke up to Emily standing in the hallway. She wasn't moving, just standing there, staring into the living room. "Em," I whispered. She didn't respond. I walked toward her and touched her shoulder. She screamed. Not a normal scream. It was pure terror. She said she saw a man sitting on our couch, watching our bedroom door. But when I turned on the lights, nothing was there. That was the first time fear truly settled into my chest. The knocking became louder. Sometimes it sounded like it was coming from inside the ceiling. Other times, directly behind the headboard of our bed. One night, at exactly 2:13 a.m., the bedroom door slowly creaked open by itself. The air was completely still. I sat up in bed and stared at the doorway, and I saw it. A shape, darker than the darkness around it, standing at the end of the hallway, watching us. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. It didn't have a face, but I knew it was looking at me. Then it stepped backward into the shadows and disappeared. After that night, everything fell apart. Lily stopped talking about him. She just cried constantly. Emily and I began fighting every single day. It felt unnatural. We were saying things to each other that we never would have said before. Cruel things, hurtful things. It was like something was feeding on our anger. Then came the scratches. Emily woke up one morning with 3 long marks on her back. We thought maybe she scratched herself in her sleep. But the next night, I woke up with identical marks across my chest. We decided to move out, but that's when things escalated. Emily's mental health collapsed quickly after that. She became paranoid. She said she saw the figure during the day now. Reflections in mirrors, standing behind me when I wasn't looking. She stopped sleeping. We argued about leaving constantly, but our lease locked us in for another 6 months. We couldn't afford to break it. Then one night, Lily disappeared from her bed. We searched the entire apartment. She was gone. Police were called. Search teams came, but there was no sign of forced entry, no broken windows, no evidence of kidnapping. Just an empty bed. And the faint sound of 3 knocks coming from inside the walls while officers searched the apartment. Lily was never found. After that, Emily blamed me. She said moving there was my idea. She said I brought this thing into our lives. She packed her bag and left with Noah 2 weeks later. She filed for divorce within the month. Noah refused to speak to me again. Emily claims she still saw the tall man standing at the foot of her bed, even in their new house. But I never saw them again. I stayed in that apartment alone until the lease ended. Not because I wanted to, but because I was afraid that if I left too soon, it would follow me. The knocking continued every night, at 2:13 a.m. 3 knocks. Sometimes I would see it standing in the hallway again, watching me, and then I heard a whisper. "You have nothing now." When I finally managed to move, it was gone. I survived. But survival is not the same as living. I lost my daughter. I lost my marriage. I lost my son. I lost my home. And every single day I regret choosing that apartment because it was cheap. I now live alone in a small rented room across town. My name is Rachel Morgan. If I could go back to the day we signed that lease, I would tear the paper in half. I would grab my children, walk out of that building, and never look back. But at the time, that apartment felt like salvation. After 12 years of marriage, my husband Aaron and I were barely speaking. We weren't abusive, we weren't violent. We were just tired. Tired of money problems. Tired of long hours. Tired of pretending everything was fine for the kids. We had 2 boys, Caleb, who was 10, and Mason, who had just turned 7. We were living in a noisy neighborhood in a small house sandwiched between busy streets. Cars passed all night. Sirens screamed through the dark. Aaron worked late shifts, and I worked mornings at a dental clinic. We barely saw each other. The stress was breaking us. One night, after a long argument about bills, Aaron said, "Maybe we just need a new place. Somewhere peaceful. A new home, a fresh start." We found the listing online the next day. 3-bedroom apartment. Top floor, quiet building, surrounded by trees, affordable rent. The photos looked warm and welcoming. Sunlight poured through wide windows. The hardwood floors shined. It looked peaceful, exactly what we needed. The landlord, a middle-aged woman named Mrs. Dorian, seemed eager to rent it. She said the previous tenants moved out suddenly due to family reasons. I didn't ask more than that. I didn't want to ruin the hope I felt. We moved in during early spring. The first week was perfect. The boys loved the space. They ran from room to room laughing. Aaron and I even started talking more. Calmly, kindly. It felt like the apartment was healing us. But peace in that place was only an illusion. The first strange thing happened on our 8th night there. I woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of soft tapping, like fingernails against glass. I assumed it was a tree branch brushing against the window. But when I looked outside, the trees were still. The tapping continued. It was coming from inside the room, from the mirror across the bedroom. I sat up slowly, and that's when I saw it. A handprint, pressed against the inside of the mirror, as if someone was trapped behind the glass. I blinked, and it was gone. I told myself I had imagined it. I didn't tell Aaron. The boys started behaving differently by the 2nd week. Caleb became quiet. He stopped playing video games and spent more time sitting in his room, with the door closed. Mason began talking to someone. At first I thought it was imaginary play. But when I asked him who he was talking to, he said, "The lady in the ceiling." I felt my stomach drop. "What lady?" I asked. He looked confused, like I should already know. "The one who crawls." Then came the walking. Every night at exactly 3 a.m., we heard footsteps above us. But we lived on the top floor. There was no one above us. Aaron finally went up to the attic access in the hallway. He pulled down the ladder and climbed up with a flashlight. He stayed up there for less than a minute. When he came down, his face was pale. "There's nothing up there," he said too quickly, but his hands were shaking. Later that night, I asked him what he saw. He hesitated. Then he admitted he found small footprints in the dust. Barefoot, like a child-sized, leading in circles. The tension between us returned, worse than before. Aaron accused me of putting ideas into the kids' heads. I accused him of ignoring what was happening. We argued almost every night. It felt like the apartment amplified every negative emotion. One evening, while washing dishes, I felt someone standing behind me. I thought it was Aaron, but when I turned around, no one was there. Then I saw something move in the reflection of the microwave door. A woman, crawling across the ceiling. Hair hung downward like wet ropes. Her face was twisted into a wide, broken smile. I spun around. Nothing. The ceiling was empty, but I could still hear soft scratching above me. Caleb stopped sleeping entirely. He said the lady stood at the foot of his bed every night, watching, smiling. Mason began waking up with bruises on his arms, finger-shaped bruises. Aaron blamed rough play at school, but I knew better, because one night I saw her clearly. I woke up unable to move. My body felt heavy, sleep paralysis, I told myself. But then the bedroom door slowly creaked open. She crawled in, upside down across the ceiling. Her eyes locked onto mine, and she whispered, "This is my home." Tears rolled down my face as I tried to scream. She lowered herself slowly toward the bed, until her face was inches from mine. Her skin looked gray, cracked. Her mouth opened too wide. Then Aaron suddenly shook me awake. I was screaming, but he said the door never opened. He said I never left the bed. Yet I could still smell something rotten in the room. The breaking point came 2 months later. I came home early from work. The apartment was silent. The front door was unlocked. Aaron was at work. The boys were supposed to be inside. I called their names. No answer. Then I heard giggling from the ceiling. I ran into Caleb's room. The window was open. Cold air rushed in, and both beds were empty. The police were called. Search teams came. They searched the woods behind the building. They searched the attic. They searched everything. No signs of forced entry. No signs of struggle. It was as if my children simply vanished into thin air. Officers stood in the hallway. The sound of crawling echoed above us. And something knocked 3 times from inside the ceiling. Aaron couldn't handle it. He blamed me for believing in ghosts instead of protecting our sons. I blamed him for ignoring the signs. We destroyed each other with grief. Our marriage ended within 6 months. He moved away. I never saw him again. I stayed in that apartment for 3 more weeks. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping my boys would come back. Every night at 3 a.m. the crawling continued. One night I climbed the attic ladder myself. I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I needed answers. The dust was thick, the air was suffocating, and in the center of the attic floor were drawings, dozens of them. Pictures of a woman with long hair, pictures of children standing beside her. It right behind me, breathing. I didn't turn around, because I didn't want to see her that close again. I climbed down and left the apartment that same night. I broke the lease. I didn't care about the cost. I survived, but survival feels empty. I lost my sons. I lost my husband. I lost the life we were trying to fix. Now I live in a small studio apartment in another state. I sleep with the lights on. And sometimes, at exactly 3 a.m., I wake up to the faint sound of scratching above my ceiling. There's no attic in this building, but sometimes I swear I hear crawling. and I still regret the day we chose comfort over caution. My name is Victor Hale. I moved into that house because I wanted silence. Real silence. Not the kind you get at night when traffic slows down. Not the kind where neighbors keep their music low. I wanted complete isolation. The kind that swallows sound and lets you breathe again. After what happened to my wife, the noise of the world felt unbearable. Claire died in a car accident on a rainy Thursday evening. A drunk driver ran a red light. Just like that, the center of my life was gone. We had one daughter, Ava. She was 6 at the time. After Claire's death, Ava stopped speaking for almost 2 months. She would sit near the window in our suburban home and stare outside without saying a word. Every corner of that house reminded us of Claire, her coffee mug, her books, her perfume still lingering in the closet. I couldn't heal there. So I convinced myself that Ava and I needed a fresh start. A new place, somewhere quiet, somewhere surrounded by nature, somewhere we could rebuild. I found the house through a small local listing. It was old but beautiful. A 2-story home sitting alone near the edge of a wooded area, about 40 minutes outside the city. The price was far below market value. That should have warned me. But grief makes you desperate. The real estate agent seemed uncomfortable during the viewing. She avoided eye contact when I asked about the previous owners. The house had large windows, tall trees surrounding it, and no nearby neighbors. It felt peaceful. We moved in at the beginning of winter. The first few days were calm. Ava even spoke for the first time in weeks when she saw her new bedroom. Snow covered the ground outside, and she smiled faintly. That smile convinced me I had made the right decision. The silence was exactly what I wanted, but silence can hide things. The first sound came on the 5th night. A knock from the front door. It was 1:14 a.m. I checked the security camera feed on my phone. No one was there. I opened the door anyway. Cold air rushed in. Nothing else. No footprints in the snow. No movement in the trees. I locked the door and blamed it on the house settling. But the next night it happened again. 3 slow knocks. This time they didn't come from the door. They came from the living room wall. Ava began talking again, but not to me. I would hear her whispering late at night, laughing softly. When I asked who she was talking to, she said, "The tall man." My blood ran cold. What tall man? She looked at me like I was asking something silly. The one who stands in the trees. She said, I started locking every door and window before bed. The forest behind the house felt different after that. I would sometimes catch glimpses of movement between the trees. Too tall to be a person. One evening, just before sunset, I saw it clearly for the first time. Standing between 2 trees about 30 yards from the house, watching the house. I stepped outside, heart pounding. The moment I moved toward it, it disappeared behind a tree. When I reached that spot, there were no footprints in the snow, just smooth, untouched white ground. The tension in the house grew heavy. Lights went off constantly. Doors that I locked would be slightly open in the morning. I installed new security cameras around the property. The footage made everything worse. At exactly 1:14 a.m., every night, the cameras would glitch. For exactly 60 seconds. Normal. Every single night. Ava started drawing again. But this time, the drawings were disturbing. They showed our house, the forest, and a tall black figure standing closer and closer in each picture. In the last drawing, it was inside the house, standing behind me. The first face-to-face encounter happened 3 weeks after we moved in. I woke up suddenly at 1:14 a.m. No knocking, no sound, just the feeling that someone was in the room. I opened my eyes, and there it was, standing in the corner of my bedroom. Its head nearly touched the ceiling. Its body was thin, stretched, unnatural. There was no face, just darkness. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stood there, watching me. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. It slowly lifted one arm and pointed toward Ava's room, dissolving into the air. I ran to her bedroom. She was sitting up in bed, smiling. "He says you're sad," she whispered. After that night, Ava changed. She became distant from me. She would stand at the window for hours, staring into the forest. One night I found her outside, barefoot in the snow, standing at the edge of the trees. I grabbed her and pulled her back inside. She screamed, not in fear but in anger. "You're not letting me go with him." Her strength felt unnatural. For a 6-year-old, she was nearly impossible to hold. Sleep became impossible. The knocking returned. Now it came from inside the attic, then from beneath the floors, then from inside the walls beside Ava's room. Always at 1:14 a.m. I started drinking just to calm my nerves. Grief mixed with fear is a dangerous thing. I began doubting my sanity. The night I lost everything came in February. A snowstorm had hit hard. The power went out around midnight. The house was swallowed in darkness. At 1:14 a.m., the knocking began, louder than ever before. From every wall. Ava walked out of her room calmly. The front door slowly unlocked by itself. I watched it happen. The deadbolt turned. The handle twisted. The door opened. Cold wind rushed in. And there it stood, closer than ever, right on the porch. It extended one long arm toward Ava. She stepped forward. I grabbed her, but something pulled her back. Her small hand slipped from mine, fell forward into the snow, and the lights came back on. The porch was empty. The yard was empty. Ava was gone. No footprints, no drag marks, nothing, just smooth snow. The police searched for weeks. Drones scanned the forest. Search parties combed every inch of land. Nothing. They suggested kidnapping. They suggested I imagined parts of it due to grief. But they couldn't explain the security footage. At 1:14 a.m., during the storm, the cameras captured something. A tall shadow crossing the porch. I sold the house at a loss. I couldn't stay there anymore. My drinking spiraled. I lost my job. I lost my friends. Most of my family stopped speaking to me. They blamed me for moving so far away, for isolating Ava. And they're right. I chose silence, isolation, and distant over my daughter, and I regret moving into that.